sending the word of God to hundreds of people at home and across the world. But in a click, big tech took it away. I'm Jessica Easthope with how One Brooklyn Parish is standing up to Facebook.
COVID relief. More vaccine doses are heading to New York as the Empire State slowly starts to reopen. But when will the Big Apple loosen restrictions? Plus, extremist threats. The Department of Homeland Security warning of potential homegrown violence since President Biden took office. Then, Pope Francis with a message of hope as he remembers the victims of the Holocaust. And
that heavenly sound is a newly restored organ from this Brooklyn church. I'm Emily Druby, and I'll show you the story behind the nearly $1 million instrument's tune-up.
The sounds of music heard once again in One Brooklyn Parish. The news starts right now. Good evening, I'm Christine Persichetti. Masses across the country are already limited. You can't go to church like you used to, but you've probably watched Mass online. What if one day you couldn't? It was blocked. That's the story at a small Brooklyn parish. Big tech came along and pulled their live stream down, cutting off Mass to thousands. Carson News' Jessica Easthope joins me now with more. Jessica.
Christine's Sacred Heart St. Stephen Parish in Carroll Gardens has been streaming Mass on Facebook since March. But on January 22nd, they were put in Facebook jail. The tech giant blocked them from doing any broadcasting, saying they were going live too much and that Masses were spam in violation of community standards. The question tonight, was it by accident? Do you view this as censorship?
But yes, I do really view that as to be censorship because there's no other possibility in my mind.
Jose San Juan has worked in technology for 30 years, and he says he's never seen anything like this.
It's very mind-boggling why we've been cut out.
Sacred Heart St. Stephen's Mass, live streamed daily to hundreds, was ripped off from the web on January 22nd and still remains blocked by Facebook.
We have two people watching.
Why? The pastor isn't so sure.
It was, needless to say, a little bit annoying. And my question was, what did we do wrong to get ourselves into this situation?
The live stream began as a simple and seamless solution to the pandemic. DeSales Media, the communication and technology arm of the Diocese of Brooklyn that operates Net TV, came in to install several new cameras that allowed people to hear the word of God in just a click.
Voxcast allowed us, through the sales program, to stream simultaneously through Facebook Live, YouTube, and our website.
But all that effort was gone in an instant when Big Tech blocked every single one of the parish's accounts from live streaming.
Those who have found this connection with the religion, with God, taken away from them. And they've already had so much taken away from them in the past year.
We reached out to Facebook to ask why this connection has been banned, and were told their investigations team would be looking into it.
We have a family that tunes in from Poland every week.
Monsignor Guy Massey is so proud when he talks about the church's presence online and the team that made it all possible.
They have made this parish look very good and helped the leadership of this parish to still announce the gospel, to still present Mass.
But why would a tech giant target a local church practicing their simple right to religious freedom?
It's very heart-wrenching.
For Jose, until he knows the real reason, he's sticking with censorship.
There's nothing that we feel has stepped over any bounds. There are no guidelines for that. There are no stipulations for that. So if there are now, please tell us.
Jose says he and the tech team put their heart and soul into making this work for parishioners. He believes the whole experience has been really violating in that something so personal is able to be controlled in this way. Christine?
Jess, I know you reached out to Facebook. What did they say to you?
So I had a few emails back and forth with Facebook, and they told me that their investigations team is on it, but they weren't able to give me an update right away. But what they did ask me, and this is really interesting, they asked if the parish was blocked in the days leading up to or immediately following the inauguration. The inauguration, if you remember, was January 20th. 2 days later, Mass was pulled down. So I'm going to keep pushing for an explanation as to why this happened.
Yeah, really interesting. All right. Thanks, Jess. We'll keep checking in with you on the story. New York Governor Andrew Cuomo is lifting microcluster zone restrictions for a majority of the state, saying the holiday coronavirus surge is over. No word yet on indoor dining restrictions, but he did say he will have a plan for the city restaurants by the end of the week.
I fully understand how difficult it is that they are closed, not just for the restaurants, but all the people who are employed there. On the flip side is how fast this virus can take off.
Citing high hospital admissions and coronavirus cases, Cuomo says yellow zone restrictions will remain in place for areas in the Bronx, Queens, Washington Heights, and Newburgh. But there is some good news for the Big Apple. Mayor Bill de Blasio announced that New York City will be seeing 30% increase in the number of Moderna vaccine doses on a weekly basis.
I'm the first to say we're going to need a lot more than that. But I'm also really happy to get those 17,000 new doses.
Looking forward to the new supply, the mayor says the city is working with local faith leaders and communities of color to ramp up vaccination efforts and to promote trust in the vaccine. De Blasio says he's looking to include members of the clergy as those eligible to get vaccinated. January has become the worst month for COVID-19 deaths in the United States since the start of the pandemic, and the rocky rollout of available vaccines hasn't helped. As the demand grows from state to state for more doses, President Biden is announcing plans to vaccinate nearly the entire U.S. population by the end of the summer. Jeremy Diamond has the details from Washington.
President Biden announcing plans to expedite vaccine distribution as shortages and long lines fuel frustration across the country.
The end goal is to beat COVID-19. And the way we do that is to get more people vaccinated.
Biden says the U.S. will buy an additional 200 million vaccine doses from Pfizer and Moderna, increasing the nation's supply to 600 million. Since both vaccines require 2 doses, that's enough to protect 300 million Americans against COVID-19, more than the U.S.'s entire adult population.
The brutal truth is, it's going to take months before we can get the majority of Americans vaccinated. Months.
The announcement coming one day after the president raised his daily vaccination target to 1.5 million people a day. All part of Biden's plan to give 100 million shots in his first 100 days. And on Tuesday, the White House's coronavirus coordinator told governors vaccine allocation will increase by about 16% starting next week.
The lives are at stake here.
The weekly vaccine supply to states, tribes, and territories will grow to a minimum of 10 million doses, up from 8.6 million.
At least now we can do a schedule for 3 weeks and we can schedule appointments and start to run on an efficient basis rather than what's been going on.
The White House coronavirus response team also says it's committed to making sure vaccines are given fairly.
That means we're going to send vaccines to churches and mobile clinics and things like that. That may mean it takes a couple days longer to get into people's arms, but it will also mean that people of color, people in rural communities, and others will have access to.
That was Jeremy Diamond reporting. Biden is also asking Congress for $130 billion to help make schools safer so that most of them can reopen to in-person learning within 100 days. Following Biden's inauguration last week, the Department of Homeland Security is now warning of a heightened domestic terrorism threat. The move is being called unprecedented. DHS says there's a potential for violence from extremists who object to the presidential transition and hold anti-government views. While the department did not cite a specific threat, it believes the possibility of an incident will persist for weeks. The president continues to unravel several Trump-era policies, this time signing a series of executive orders targeting climate change with a focus on job creation. Wednesday's orders will pause new oil and gas leases on public lands and offshore waters and increase investments in green infrastructure, including $2 trillion for clean energy projects. Earlier in the day, it was announced that the United States would host an international climate change summit on April 22nd. Earth Day. Life issues are top of mind in state legislatures. Several measures for and against abortion are currently being discussed. South Carolina's Senate is considering a bill that would ban elective abortions after a fetal heartbeat can be detected. In Florida, lawmakers have introduced a bill in their House and Senate that would ban abortions after 20 weeks. The Montana State House approved 4 pro-life bills that their governor has pledged to sign. And beginning this week, lawmakers in New Mexico will debate repealing an abortion ban that pre-existed Roe v. Wade. In just a few days, the nation's largest fight for life will take place virtually. Currents News and The Tablet will have full coverage of the March for Life, which will happen this Friday. Be sure to check out currentsny.tv and thetablet.org for the latest reports on that event. Tomorrow, the opening mass for the National Prayer Vigil for Life will air live right here on Net TV. The vigil will be held at the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception in Washington, D.C. That again will be live on Net TV tomorrow at 8:30 p.m. And here in Brooklyn, the closing mass for the U.S. Bishop's 9-day novena ahead of the March for Life will be held at the Co-Cathedral of St. Joseph this Friday. That's January 29th, following Currents News at 7:30 p.m. It will also be live here on Net TV. The Bishop of Brooklyn, Nicholas DiMarzio, will be the main celebrant. For the past year, the organ at Immaculate Heart of Mary Church in Brooklyn has been out of service, undergoing an extensive and expensive repair. But now, with the help of the parish community, the music is back, and they couldn't be more thrilled. Currents News' Emily Druby has the details.
Angie Hongada has spent over 40 years sitting in these pews, listening to this organ, a soothing sound she relies on during her almost daily trips to Immaculate Heart of Mary Church in Windsor Terrace, Brooklyn. But something has changed.
The organ is a big difference for the community, and the sound is totally different.
This organ repaired for the first time since 1968.
Feels great compared to playing the old one because it was very worn out and very out of tune.
The restoration done by Paragallo Pipe Organ Company out of New Jersey was quite the undertaking, but essential.
The organ plays a huge part in having good music, music that people feel, music that people experience, music that resonates with people's souls.
So their pastor, Father Elias Gill, made it a priority. 2 of the 3 organ bellows, which generates the wind, were not working.
I said, how can you run on one bellow, on one leg?
Now they have 5. 1,400 pipes had to be reshaped, replaced, or cleaned up. Pieces removed one by one, taken up and down this ladder through this tiny opening. They also repaired the room it was in and added new electronics. It took a year and $350,000, a lot of that coming from collections and parishioners.
So people are very generous, I can say. They support me. Since I'm here, I have never been seen that they put church down. They always supported the church.
The community coming together and being there for their church, just like it's always there for them.
This is our church.
The people here are very caring about one another.
Parishioners went almost a full year without the organ while it was being repaired, but now heavenly music will be heard at Immaculate Heart of Mary Church once again. In Windsor Terrace, Brooklyn, Emily Druby, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. Pope Francis remembers the Holocaust with powerful words of reflection and care. Plus, a pastor using social media to evangelize to the faithful in not so traditional ways. And Bright Christmas was bright indeed. We'll tell you how the Tablets campaign brought lots of joy during the holiday season. Wednesday is International Holocaust Remembrance Day, the anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. Pope Francis says it's essential not to forget that tragedy.
Ricordare è un'espressione di umanità. Ricordare è segno di civiltà. Ricordare è condizione per un futuro migliore di pace e di fraternità.
Speaking at the end of his general audience, the Pope said we must remember because it can happen again and that it's important to avoid repeating the mistakes of the past. One New Yorker is also remembering. She survived the Holocaust and now lives to tell about it. Born in Berlin in 1930, Irene Butter grew up as a Jewish girl in Nazi-occupied Europe, forced to endure the horrors of the Holocaust.
Hitler came to power when I was 3 years old, and gradually the persecution of the Jews developed.
In 1937, Butter's family fled to the Netherlands, but a German invasion in 1940 left them under Nazi oppression once again. First, they were sent to a transit camp, and then to the Bergen-Belsen concentration camp, where Butter knew Anne Frank before she died there. Butter nearly suffered the same tragic fate.
After 1 year of horrible conditions, my family barely survived. Not giving up hope was a very critical thing, to hope that the war will end, that I will survive.
Soon after, Butter's beloved father died on their train to freedom. Her mother and brother were hospitalized, and 14-year-old Butter was sent to France, then Algiers, and finally the United States.
I was separated from my mother and my brother for 18 months before we were reunited in New York to start a new life.
In the U.S., Butter earned her doctorate, became a professor, and started a family, now with grandchildren bearing witness to her legacy.
I actually heard about her story at a very, very young age, and I remember being terrified. I feel very, very fortunate to have a grandmother that is so strong, that has survived something like this, and I've learned so much from her.
Telling others about her ordeal was not always easy for Butter. It took 4 decades before she could relive what she had endured in the Holocaust. She says one of her main influences was fellow Holocaust survivor Elie Wiesel.
I once heard him speak on the radio, and he said, if you were in the camps, if you smelled the air and heard the silence of the dead, then it's your duty to be a witness and to tell the story.
Since finding her voice, Butter has told her story around the world with a focus on speaking in schools.
The responses I receive from students to my story who put themselves in my shoes and try to relate their own lives to it, that is what gives me hope.
And Butter says she still has faith in humanity, despite the atrocities she's faced.
There's good in every person. We're all made of the same fabric, regardless of nationality, ethnicity, religion. I think that our humanity overrides all these differences.
Butter says there were echoes of the Holocaust when protesters stormed the Capitol on January 6th, some of them wearing Nazi symbols and slogans. But she says we learned from it that democracy is vulnerable and we can't take anything for granted. Catholics in Iraq certainly don't take peace for granted. After recent terror attacks in their country, Cardinal Louis Seiko, head of the Chaldean Catholic Church, is calling on them to fast and pray this week. A 3-day Nineveh fast, praying for peace and security in their country ahead of Pope Francis's upcoming visit. The pontiff is set to arrive in Iraq on March 5th. Still to come on Currents News, a community takes to the streets of Maspeth to honor a local deacon who passed away. And
the reality is that real ministry can be done digitally, but that doesn't erase the need for some kind of connection.
How one pastor has gone viral in his attempts to spread the good news. Following the passing of a local deacon in Queens, the corner of 61st Street and Maspeth Avenue has been co-named Deacon David Corsiari Way. The designation is in honor of the deacon of St. Stanislaus Kostka Church, who passed away due to a 9/11 related illness in 2018. Corsiari's family advocated for the street co-naming in 2019 and joined City Councilman Robert Holden and other parishioners in the official co-naming over the weekend. The pandemic has forced many churches to get creative when it comes to reaching their congregations, and one Indiana pastor has gone viral doing just that. DJ Manu has his story.
His intentions were simply to find his own creative outlet, but quickly Pastor Grant Merrill discovered the possibilities in the world of TikTok.
Hey, I'm Pastor Grant, also known as Pastor_G. And
giving words of wisdom and encouragement. Known as the TikTok pastor, Merrill says he didn't see much potential in the app when he got it 2 years ago.
I remember when I posted my very first videos, they got 5 and 6 views apiece. And I remember one Sunday morning I posted a video right before worship, and I got back to my office, and I couldn't believe that I'd gotten 2,000 views, and I just thought that was nuts. And
fast forward, and he now has nearly 300,000 followers worldwide. The short clips combining humor and inspiration.
My hope is that my videos provide some kind of light, some kind of hope that we're not alone, that there are people that are making a difference, that if we look around us, there is good all the time.
And while many are wondering why you walk like that, why you talk like that, Pastor Grant was wondering how he can still reach his congregation even though they couldn't meet in person.
The reality is that real ministry can be done digitally, but that doesn't erase the need for some kind of connection.
I want to go to church with somebody. With his pews empty, Merrill wanted to find a creative way to reach through the phone to those in need.
I've built real relationships with people that I've never met in person. And in turn, we've actually had individuals from all over the world join us in our church services on Sunday mornings, which has been a wonderful surprise.
Merrill says he tries to post at least once a week, and each video is designed to either give a sense of hope or encouragement. In Mishawaka, DJ Manu.
Too funny. Thanks to viewers like you, children across the Diocese of Brooklyn were able to receive gifts this Christmas, all part of the Tablet's Bright Christmas campaign. Through many generous donations, the campaign was able to raise close to $92,000. Over the last 9 years, the Bright Christmas campaign has received and distributed more than $1 million, which has been used to purchase Christmas presents, food, educational materials, and other basic necessities. So thanks to all for your generosity. And that is Currents News. I'm Christine Persichetti. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. We'd like to end this program on a joyful note, quite literally, with the official song for the church's next World Youth Day event. The gathering of thousands of youth from around the world will take place in Lisbon, Portugal in the year 2023. And their theme song, There's a Rush in the Air, remembers Mary as she said yes to carrying the Son of God and rushed to meet her cousin Elizabeth. Hope to see you again next time.
Levantemos os braços, a pressa no ar. Jesus vive e não nos deixa sós, não mais deixaremos de amar.